So we can't be boots on the ground at E3 this year, but the GM of Call of Duty, Johanna Faries, has kindly agreed to come join us and talk about everything COD. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Super happy to be here.
So it was only a few years ago that Call of Duty was a singular beast, and now it's more of a multi-headed hydra of Warzone, the annual release, Call of Duty Mobile, and it's on people's radar all year round, not during peak season anymore. So who's playing all of these versions? Is there much crossover, or have you sort of seen sort of individual markets taking on each type of game?
Yeah, I think it's really an interesting time for the franchise, to your point, because it's expanded at such scale so quickly. You think about what happened, not just with the premium releases doing what they've done, but here comes mobile, here comes Warzone, and now you have a whole new VR component to the community. And it's just been a really interesting exercise, I think, in how to transform the franchise. It's never been stronger in many ways. So when you ask who's playing, clearly we've seen a floodgate open as far as new, entrants into the system beyond what we were traditionally known for with the core MP predominantly or campaign-driven types of experiences prior to those releases that I mentioned. And you also see new regions in the globe that have opened up. I think mobile has done a tremendous job sort of lighting Call of Duty up in all these different ways in regions where maybe we weren't as dominant prior to, just given the platform strategy that can scale in different parts of the world now with the same IP. So it's really amazing. I think we have cross-pollination. We also have these sort of region-specific identities that have emerged given that growth that I mentioned. And the franchise, in many ways, I think is undergoing sort of a renaissance to really consider ourselves differently. Who are we as a mega brand? Who do we appeal to in ways that maybe have created new vectors for us? And it's really about connecting more players all over the world, removing the barriers, making it easy to drop in and play Call of Duty the way you like to play it, with you and with your friends, right?
I'm glad you mentioned the VR aspect, because Warzone is really a pillar of that genre. Do you feel like there's a responsibility for Call of Duty Warzone sort of keeping that genre healthy almost?
Well, we're always going to look at how we make sure we're delivering top quality experiences, right? So if it's out there and it's got Call of Duty in the name, right, we're going to continue to think about what's next. How do we keep up leveling that experience and making it player centric? That's always just going to be the guidepost for us. But you're right. I think now, given how interconnected and dynamic the Call of Duty brand has become, we have to be sensitive to components or aspects or expectations of communities that might have been just much different or smaller, frankly, prior to Warzone's dominance and takeover and the way that it's captured such attention. So I love that. Personally, I think there's so much we therefore can do to have a bigger canvas on which to paint, so to speak. But with it, you're right, comes new expectations, new ways of thinking about creative, new ways of thinking about connecting seasons, and what we need to deliver for a Warzone experience, let's say around, season 4 coming up here, has its own intricacies, has its own dimensions that might interplay differently than what will show up for the core premium Cold War audience, right? All within the same messaging framework or creative and narrative framework. So we love that. I mean, we wouldn't have done it if we didn't think we couldn't deliver in a world-class way. But you're right, it adds more conversation around community expectations and behaviors.
And speaking of that 4th season coming up, what can fans expect from this season?
Yeah, it's a packed one. We've got a lot coming for players across both Cold War and Warzone. You've got new maps, you've got new operators and new weapons. I love personally the narrative arc of satellites now crashing onto the scene, and the way in which we're just going to continue to keep the content fresh. That's really the whole strategy here, is just keep giving players reasons to come back, come and play, and create that re-engagement in a much more consistent manner. And Warzone affords us an ability, right, to stretch in these ways and keep refreshing the content at a seasonal level, in addition to what we see in our major mainline release cadences. So it's fun to do it, and I think season 4 is going to have something for everybody in many ways.
And with all the structural, organizational execution level challenges and opportunities that come with running not one but multiple Call of Duty games these days. At what scale are you sort of pushing forward with them all? Is there sort of a defining force or a singular game that you're focused on, or is it sort of spinning all those plates at once?
Well, I think it's a little bit that we become our own biggest competitor in many ways, right? Because Call of Duty has scaled so tremendously in a way that most brands, not just in gaming, but also in entertainment, often aren't playing at that type of dominant level all at once. So yeah, it certainly invites, complexities to keep pumping out top tier engagement, top tier experiences year round, but we're well positioned to do it. I think it speaks to the health of the franchise that, there's dynamism sort of happening and firing on all these different cylinders. Specific challenges come with the territory of trying to be a true mega brand. But that's part of the appeal, in my opinion, is that, we play big and we love trying to set our own records and then break them all over again. So it's an exciting time when you think about it through that lens.
How much of the health of Warzone and Call of Duty Mobile do you feel is tied to that annual release? Because obviously that's a huge time of year for you over there, and it brings in a lot of players. But are each individual Call of Duty games now strong enough that they can sort of stand on their own, or how much is that yearly release really pushing forward the separate games?
I think there's no question that in many ways what COD Mobile is doing in and of itself, and then what Warzone is doing sort of in and of itself with its own community and its own inflection points, and then certainly with what Mainline is doing, you could make the argument that they stand on their own merit in many ways, just from the sheer scale of who's pouring into them. But, I think the magic is how we found the synergies creatively. I think season 3.5 that we just came off of, our 80s action heroes event, is a great example of that, right? Like, you really saw it light up, not just in Cold War, but within Warzone, and then even COD Mobile bringing some of those assets and ways to play. So you felt like you were having a sort of franchise-wide experience, regardless of which door you chose to pour into, and it really translated with major success for us. So they certainly have their own strategies, and they certainly have their own nuances, because the play space and just the community intricacies are going to be different, and you need to be sharp about that. But at the same time, I think the 1 + 1 = 3 power of Call of Duty is that we can be both specific and customized and really enterprise-wide to position the brand as, something much more than just a one-note type of experience.
I'm really glad you mentioned the action movie editions as well, because I absolutely adored that. But
Nice.
I want to know, is there more sort of action movie staples in the mix? Is this sort of collaboration between brands and already existing franchises something that you want to do more? And do you have any in the works?
Whenever it makes sense, it always comes back to strategy. We're not going to just do something because it's cool to do or it's expected to do. It's got to make sense. It's got to happen at the right time. And you don't want to sort of, again, be one note or tripwire on just because it's worked before, you should do it over and over again, right? And so I think there's really careful consideration around the power of those types of partnerships. And as you mentioned, it's awesome to hear that you enjoyed it, and whether you enjoyed playing as Rambo or John McClane and Nakatomi Tower, like that felt in many ways on brand and another reason to re-engage with Call of Duty, right? And so we're always just going to think about the timing of those partnerships, the why behind doing it, right? And as long as there's a massive focus on fun, great gameplay, I want to drop in with my friends, so this is going to be socially connected for me, then certainly it's something we're going to take a look at. But we're always going to think about, does it make sense in a broader scope and strategy before we just sort of roll them out in too much of an expected way.
If there was no objections, there was no speed bumps in the road, and you could choose any franchise that you could drop into Warzone, purely your choice, your favorite, no one could say no to you, what would it be?
I don't even think I'm allowed to answer that question. I'm sure the phones will ring if I picked one, but I will say, as an 80s kid, I am kind of signaling a little bit of my age. I loved it, and in terms of season 3.5, and while I grew up watching a lot of Die Hard, so I was expecting to want to really go that route, like Rambo had my heart. It was just the one, it took the cake. And so, I love that. I think that the multiplicity factor of that was very cool too. And so we'll take that into consideration, and we'll keep seeing what we can do with it.
All right. Well, if you're taking requests, I'm a big fan of Fifth Element. I know you've already done Bruce Willis, but Fifth Element or
Great one.
Demolition Man.
I love
That'll make
that.
someone on our staff very happy if you put Demolition
I
Man.
love both of those suggestions. Noted.
This obviously very much speaks to the evolution of Call of Duty, but now it's evolved so much from the Call of Duty that we knew 3, 4, 5 years ago. Now it's evolved so far. Has its main competitors shifted somewhat? Who do you feel is the main competitors in the market at the moment for you?
It's a great question. And the reason I love the question is because the brand has stretched in all these different ways, whereby the competitor set is actually really, really dynamic and wide ranging. And sometimes the competition is really ourselves. And I don't mean that with any hubris. I just mean, again, because we're playing in all these different spaces that oftentimes you don't find one singular brand being able to do or want to do, as sometimes it's really just about how do we want to, manage our own success here. I say that too because even coming up the ranks through the esports side and the competitive part of Call of Duty, right? Like a lot of the vision there is competing with sports and entertainment properties, and not just top tier esports, but really the NBAs and the NFLs of the world. So Call of Duty sort of entry into these different discussion points around who are we competing with, it really depends on what part of the franchise we're seeking to light up. The other thing I'd say though is like competition is good. Like the more that gaming is becoming this more transformational industry worldwide, I think it's just good for Call of Duty. It's good for esports. It's good for entertainment. It's good for events. So, while we are always going to look at the competition, we also sort of welcome it, because all boats certainly shall rise with, the innovation that's just pouring into the industry as we're seeing it right now.
Now you've come from the esports side of Call of Duty. Can you speak a little to to the importance of esports to COD?
Well, of course, I'm a little biased when I say that it's very important, but I say that because these are the LeBron James of our sport, and while that may be lost on traditional, let's say, mainstream culture in certain respects, I think what Call of Duty is doing to really change the narrative around not just professional competition, but world-class production, world-class broadcast events, world-class ticketed events where you can go in and have a Call of Duty experience and also see the best of the best in the world. The other reason I say it's important is because when you think about how much our player base is just expanded, right? And hundreds and hundreds of millions of people worldwide playing. The fact that, our esports community not only is engaged as avidly as they are, but they have to be so tremendously good, just statistically speaking, to be able to consider themselves a pro. And I think that often gets lost in the conversation of how good these guys and women have to be ultimately to compete in Call of Duty, just given the franchise's scale. So it's something that I think we love because it extends people's attachment. Now I can tune in and watch Call of Duty and have an affinity for the brand in addition to dropping in and playing. But I also, I think it's about giving pro players the respect that they've so rightly earned, and really putting them on the map as truly the stars of tomorrow, not just in gaming, but in sports and entertainment more broadly.
And this is very much the time of the year where people, including myself, are chomping at the bit for more Call of Duty. But can you actually share any details when you're actually going to start announcing the next Call of Duty? Because we're too excited to sit still at this point.
I hear you. I do not believe I am at liberty to share more details. And I don't want to get the slap on the wrist this early in my role as GM. But I will say there are great things coming. And I think the reason we all feel super energized about being a part of Call of Duty right now because, the days ahead just look so promising and so exciting. And Sledgehammer Games is working on the next release, and it's going to be a tremendous thing. So we're excited to share more details here as we get closer to prime time.
Well, I greatly appreciate you spending a little time with us today, and everyone watching, when we do hear news about more Call of Duty, we will bring it to you. So make sure to like the video, subscribe, and stay tuned for more content. Johanna, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.